You think your species is tough? Let me tell you something, friend. You have absolutely no idea what tough means until you've watched a human eat fermented beans for breakfast, run 20 kilometers for fun, and then volunteer to fix a plasma conduit leak that's literally melting through the hull. I'm Vrix, Junior Tactical Officer aboard the Galactic Concordance vessel, Harmony's Edge, and I've spent the last 6 rotations learning that everything, absolutely everything I was taught about dangerous predators was laughably wrong. The war ended 3 cycles ago. The Korthax swarm, those chitinous nightmares from the outer reaches, had finally agreed to a ceasefire after humans showed up and, well, let's just say they showed up. Command called it a diplomatic resolution. I call it the time humans made the galaxy's most feared species wet themselves and beg for mercy. But here's the thing nobody tells you in the aftermath of galactic conflict. Peace is somehow worse than war when humans are involved. Officer Vrix, Captain Filmar's voice crackled through my comm unit, interrupting my 3rd attempt at filing incident report number 7042. Yes, you heard that right. 7042. In 6 rotations. Yes, Captain. I tried to keep the exhaustion from my voice. Failed spectacularly. We have a situation in Bay 12. Of course we did. We always had a situation. Usually involving one of our human crew members doing something that defied at least 3 laws of physics and 7 regulations of common sense. I skittered down the corridor, my 4 legs carrying me faster than most species could manage. The Harmony's Edge was a modified cruiser, designed to accommodate 73 different species after the Concordance formed. Humans called it the Space Apartment Complex from Hell. They also called it home, which should have been my first warning. Bay 12's doors hissed open, and I was immediately greeted by the smell. Oh, ancestors preserve me. The smell. Something between burning electronics, spices that could strip paint, and what humans inexplicably called gym socks. What in the name of the first colonies is happening here? I demanded. 3 humans stood in the center of the bay. 2 were holding what appeared to be makeshift weapons constructed from spare parts. The 3rd, a female named Kira Vasquez, was suspended upside down from the ceiling pipes, casually eating something from a crinkly package while she worked on rewiring the environmental controls. Hey Vrix, she waved, somehow not dropping her snack or her tools. We're improving things. Improving. I felt my tertiary eyelids twitch. That was never good. What exactly are you improving? The gravity plating, said Marcus Oke, one of the humans on the ground. He was what they called engineer adjacent, which meant he knew just enough to be dangerous and not enough to be stopped by pesky things like safety protocols. Kira figured out we could boost efficiency by 37%. And the weapons? I pointed at the clearly unauthorized equipment. Oh, these. The other human, a male named Dovan Hayes, grinned. Humans always grinned before explaining something catastrophic. Paintball guns. We're having a tournament. A tournament. My voice came out flat. With projectile weapons. In a pressurized spacecraft. They're just paint, Kira called from above. Mostly non-toxic. Probably won't stain the bulkheads permanently. I pulled up the incident report template on my datapad. My claws knew the keystrokes by heart now. You do realize that modifying ship systems without authorization is a Class 3 violation. Sure, Marcus shrugged. That peculiarly human gesture that meant they understood rules existed and chose to ignore them anyway. But check this out. He tapped a control panel. The gravity in Bay 12 suddenly shifted. Not dangerously, but smoothly, creating zones of variable gravity that flowed like water. Kira dropped from the ceiling, executed a flip that should have been impossible, and landed perfectly on her feet in a high-gravity zone. I had to admit, it was impressive, horrifying, completely unauthorized, and definitely going to give Captain Thelmar another stress malt. But impressive. The Korthax delegation arrives in 8 hours, I reminded them, trying to sound authoritative. Captain wants everything perfect. Devon made that dismissive sound humans used. The Korthax? Those guys are easy. Remember when Tommy accidentally started that food fight in the diplomatic dining hall? I remembered. I had witnessed a Korthax warrior, a creature that had terrorized entire star systems, absolutely lose its composure when hit with what humans called mashed potatoes. The warrior had retreated, clicking in distress, while Tommy apologized profusely and offered to share his dessert as compensation. The Korthax, it turned out, were utterly baffled by human social customs and slightly terrified of their unpredictability. That was different, I argued weakly. Different how? Kira had that look. The one that meant she was about to make a point I wouldn't like. They're coming here to finalize the trade agreements, right? They need to see we're reliable partners. Exactly my point, which is why we cannot have unauthorized modifications, and I gestured at the makeshift weapons, recreational warfare in the cargo bay. Recreational warfare is how humans bond. Marcus protested. It's cultural. You wouldn't want to discriminate against our cultural practices, would you, Vrix? They were using regulations against me. Humans had become terrifyingly good at that. Before I could formulate a response that wouldn't result in more paperwork, the ship's alarm blared. Not the general quarters alarm, not the collision warning. The specific dreaded tone that meant someone had triggered the biohazard sensors. Please tell me, I said slowly, that one of you didn't try to cook human food in the recycling processes again. 3 guilty faces stared back at me. It was supposed to be a surprise, Devon said. We wanted to make kimchi for the Korthax. Cultural exchange. Fermented cabbage. I shrieked. You made fermented cabbage in the waste management system? Technically it's a very controlled bacterial process, Kira offered helpfully. I was going to molt early. I could feel it. The biohazard alarm was still screaming when Captain Thelmar appeared in Bay 12, looking like someone had just told him his retirement fund had been invested in human cuisine. His scales had that particular shade of purple that meant he was 3 seconds away from spacing someone. Explain. One word. Flat. Dangerous. I opened my mouth, but Marcus beat me to it. Captain, good news. We've successfully created a sustainable fermentation system that could revolutionize our food production capabilities for long-range missions. That was the thing about humans. They could describe an absolute disaster like it was a breakthrough scientific achievement. Technically, they weren't even lying. That was the worst part. Fermentation, Thamar repeated slowly. In the waste recycling system. Well, when you say it like that it sounds bad, Devon interjected. But consider the efficiency. We're using existing infrastructure, and the temperature controls were already perfect for the process. Get it out. Thamar's vocal sac inflated, a sure sign we were approaching critical mass. The Korthax delegation arrives in 7 hours and 42 minutes. I will not have them boarding a ship that smells like a biological weapon. About that, Kira dropped from the ceiling again. This time in normal gravity. How she kept doing that, I had no idea. We might have an opportunity here. An opportunity. I could hear my career dying. Please elaborate on how fermenting vegetables in the sewage system creates an opportunity. The Korthax have a highly developed sense of smell, right? Kira pulled up a holographic display. Actual research. Humans did that sometimes, buried their chaos in legitimate preparation. Their communication relies partly on pheromone detection. We've been treating them like warriors, but their culture is actually way more complex. She expanded the display, showing chemical compositions and behavior analyses. I've been studying their delegation profiles. 3 of the 5 representatives are from their agricultural castes. They're not here to intimidate us. They're here to establish trade routes for their crop systems. Marcus caught on immediately. And fermented foods are a huge part of human agriculture. Preservation, nutrition, cultural significance. You're suggesting, Thamar said carefully, that we present your biological incident as a cultural demonstration. It's not an incident if it's intentional, Devon said brightly. I wanted to argue. I wanted to cite regulations. I wanted to do my job as a proper officer. But I'd been around humans long enough to recognize something important. When they accidentally stumbled into brilliance, it was usually better to just hold on and pray to whatever deities were listening. Fine. The last scales shifted to a resigned blue. But if this fails, you're all cleaning waste reclamation for the next 6 cycles, with manual tools. Deal. All 3 humans responded in unison. 6 hours later, Bay 12 had been transformed. The kimchi, along with several other fermented human foods that Marcus insisted on calling artisanal cultures, had been properly contained in what they assured me were food-grade containers. The modified gravity system had been logged as an experimental efficiency upgrade, pending official approval. The paintball guns had mysteriously vanished. I stood at attention beside Captain Thelmar as the Korthax delegation boarded. 5 massive beings, each standing 3 meters tall with chitinous armor that could deflect plasma fire. Their mandibles clicked in complex patterns, chemical signatures wafting through the filtered air. The lead representative, War Leader Crixtal, I had met before. The others were new, smaller with different colorations and less pronounced combat adaptations. Captain Thelmar, Crixtal's translator, rendered the clicks into standard Galactic. The Concordance honors your hospitality. The honor is ours, War Leader. Thelmar executed a perfect diplomatic bow. May I present Officer Vrix, our tactical coordinator, and our human cultural liaisons. That's what we were calling them now. Cultural liaisons. Not the 3 people who turned our ship into a science experiment. Kira stepped forward with absolutely no fear. Humans never had the sense to be afraid of things that could rip them apart. War Leader Crixtal, honored delegates. We've prepared a demonstration of human agricultural traditions. We hope it provides insight into potential trade opportunities. One of the smaller Korthax, whose carapace bore agricultural markings, stepped forward. Their mandibles moved rapidly, and the translator worked overtime. You are the species from the Deathworld. Earth, we have studied your report. Your planet's environment is classified as extreme hazard level 9. Oh yeah, Marcus grinned. Earth's a bit spicy. But that's exactly why our food preservation techniques might interest you. They led the delegation to Bay 12. I followed, datapad ready to document whatever disaster was about to unfold. The Korthax stopped at the entrance. Their antennae quivered, chemical sensors going into overdrive. The agricultural delegate moved closer to the fermentation containers, mandibles clicking excitedly. This scent profile, the translator struggled to keep up with the rapid clicking. Complex bacterial cultures, controlled decomposition, strategic preservation. This is sophisticated. Kira beamed. We call this batch kimchi. Fermented vegetables with specific bacterial strains that enhance nutrition and flavor. The process takes weeks, but the result is shelf-stable for months without refrigeration. Another delegate joined the agricultural specialist. Your Deathworld forces such adaptations. Remarkable. Our colony worlds struggle with food preservation in variable conditions. This technique could solve distribution problems across 7 systems. Devon opened another container. This one's kombucha. Fermented tea with probiotic cultures. And over here we've got sourdough starter that's been kept alive for, no joke, 200 years. Humans pass these cultures down through generations. The war leader Crixtal watched his agricultural specialists practically vibrate with excitement. His mandibles formed what I'd learned to recognize as their version of a smile. We came prepared to negotiate standard trade agreements. I see now we vastly underestimated human ingenuity. We get that a lot, Marcus said casually. People see Earth's classification, hear about our wars and assume we're just good at violence. But humans became the dominant species on our planet because we learned to preserve, adapt and share resources. The fighting came later. Over the next 3 hours I watched something incredible happen. The Korthax delegation, these beings who had fought a brutal war across a dozen systems, sat down with 3 humans and discussed bacteria cultures, fermentation times, and agricultural trade routes. They sampled carefully prepared foods, their chemical sensors analyzing compositions, while they clicked enthusiastically about applications for their colony worlds. Officer Vrix, Captain Thelmar spoke quietly beside me. Make a note in your report. I pulled up the template expecting another incident documentation. Humans, he continued, despite operating outside standard protocols, have successfully established agricultural trade agreements worth approximately 40 million credits, resolved cultural tensions through food diplomacy, and turned a biohazard incident into the most successful first contact continuation in Concordance history. I stared at my datapad. Sir, that doesn't fit the incident report format. Good? His scales rippled with what might have been amusement. File it as a commendation instead. Across the bay, Devon was teaching a Korthax warrior how to play what he called rock, paper, scissors, while Kira explained the chemical composition of hot sauce. Marcus had 3 delegates huddled around his datapad, comparing notes on crop rotation. You know what the scariest thing about humans is? I asked quietly. That they eat fermented poison for fun? Thulmar suggested. No. I watched Kira successfully convince a being that could crack hull plating to try a pepper that she described as only medium spicy. It's that they make friends with everyone. They've been in space for barely a century, and they've already figured out how to turn enemies into trading partners over pickled vegetables. Peace is harder than war for most species, Thulmar observed, but humans were already excellent at it before they left their Deathworld. They just needed the rest of us to catch up. The war leader Crixtel approached us, his agricultural specialist still chattering excitedly behind him. Captain Thulmar, Officer Vrix. The Korthax Collective wishes to extend an invitation. We would like your human crew to visit our agricultural worlds, to share techniques, to teach. We'd be honored, Thulmar replied. Also, Crixtel's mandibles clicked in their smile pattern. We wish to issue a formal apology. For what, war leader? We threatened to consume your species during the war. We had no idea you would taste so spicy. Beside me, all 3 humans burst into laughter. Within seconds, the Korthax were clicking in their version of laughter too. The sound filled Bay 12, echoing off the modified gravity plating and past the containers of fermented chaos. I pulled up a new file on my datapad, incident report number 7043. Then I deleted it and started a new document instead. Sometimes the best way to handle humans wasn't to document their chaos. It was to appreciate the method behind their madness and just hang on for the ride. After all, if Deathworlders could turn fermented cabbage into galactic peace treaties, maybe the rest of us had been doing this whole civilization thing wrong all along.